Ted, as a reminder, I'm about to flip this switch, and then everything you'll say after that will be recorded.
I can be silent.
Are you?
I'm good.
We'll call the meeting to order. Have a quorum. So, you have the agenda and the minutes, and so I think we can adopt those together. If we approve those, we might move pretty quickly through the agenda with the slim attendance, but we do need the adoption of the minutes. So if you could...
Motion to adopt.
A motion to adopt the minutes.
I second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to set the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda. Do we have a second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Michelle, I understand you want to get out of here pretty quickly, so you're up next. So, and I think the main question that we had was how the receipt of our finances, how that process works, and we wanted to understand that a little bit better. I think Stephanie had raised this question. She saw in, I believe it was perhaps September or October's numbers, that there was a little, she thought they had done better in October, for example, than they had done in September, but the revenues were higher for those particular months. And I don't remember what the particular months were.
And I can give y'all these reports I get from the county. The county, such as we get in August, okay, the hotels collect the revenues in June for all the rooms. They submit it to the county in July. In July, the county reconciles everything, and we get it in August. So it's kind of like a 2-month lag when we get the reports. But they give us a report showing the hotels, how many rooms, how many days, and everything. And I can send the email to these to y'all every month, or print on whatever you like.
Yes.
Would we like to see that much detail?
Yeah.
For instance, September collection, we're talking about September rooms.
So,
I think she had noted it was like
So,
September, October.
yeah, so September's proceeds, revenues were 9418, and October's were 8308. So,
8308 was what we received in November. The county got in October, that was for September's rooms. The rooms rented in September.
the 8308 was for,
Rooms rented in September.
okay.
Okay, so it should be categorized a month previous then, is what you're saying. So by the time it shows up and it's logged in the financial statement, it's actually for a prior timeline. Okay, so I guess I'll need to see that, so I make sure when I give them the financial report, the report for the month is actually for that month. I just have been reporting when it shows up in the financials that is the payment for that time period.
Yeah, because I have to report
Okay.
it in the financials the month we actually receive the cash.
Okay.
But yeah, I can give these reports that way, and it makes more sense.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you have any other questions, Ashley?
Mm-mm.
Any other
No.
questions from the board? So this never, it just goes from the hotel to the county?
Mhm.
Never goes to the state?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. You just receive it directly from the county?
Yeah, as far as I know, it's always went to the county, they reconcile it.
Sales tax goes to state though.
Yeah.
The county tourism board gets its 3% and we get our 3%. So the other question was, and I'm not sure you know anything about this, so there's the question about the home two.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can update the board on the home two.
I don't have any updated information. I haven't
Okay.
heard anything.
But the question was, do we know anything about the law regarding extended stay hotels? It's my understanding that in some situations that you do not receive tourism
Right.
occupancy tax.
Right, right. So I did look that up, and I thought I sent like a month or two ago an email to you in Ryan with the law attached to it. Well, I found some case law about it, and it appears that you have to be there 90 consecutive days before you're exempt from paying the tax.
Ah, okay.
So I found, in North Carolina.
Okay.
So if someone's there for 30 days and then they go home and even come back the following week for 30 days, if it wasn't consecutive, they still have to pay the tax.
Okay, great. Any other questions from Michelle? While she's here, do you want to just quickly review that financial report for? This is the minutes. I'm sorry. It's on page 10. That's the current report, Shelley.
I'm looking at this, let me see here. I believe, I think it starts on page 11, actually, that page 10
Gotcha. I'm
was
sorry, yeah, that's part of the budget. Page
yes.
11
So
is the
11.
current report.
And again, I'll have to go back on page 13 and adjust the proceeds based on the report to ensure that the right amount is represented by the correct month, because there's a lag time.
Well, I think your report would be accurate, because we log it when we receive it. So
Correct.
just keep in mind, and you can just put it out on there.
For what
That's-
month it was actually for.
Yeah, it's actually, yeah,
Okay,
it's
so
month
I could
by.
do that, because that's what I do, is before I do the financial report, I open up the accounting and I check to see if any more revenues have been received. And if it says September, it was logged in September, I go ahead and put it in this September slot, but I didn't realize that it may have been for a month or two previous.
So we're going to continue to see when the revenues are logged in your office, but those are for the previous month, is what we're going to continue to see. Do I understand?
Yes, that's what I just heard. So what I can do is on the column adjacent to it, I can put for September or for the month, and so that way you know. But I think then it would keep our accounting correct, because we have to tag in the revenues received. And if we switch it to when it was for the past fiscal year or calendar year, it could be very problematic, I think, for auditors.
We'll back up, one we will back up every year that we get in July that was for June. We do back that one up, but the rest of them, it's quarter when it comes in.
Okay.
We'll still report it, y'all still won't see it. It's a different entry, we have to do adjusting entry for our financial statements for the auditors. It's
Okay.
always gonna show up when we report it, when it's our actual, we receive the actual cash,
Right.
is when it's gonna hit those accounts that you.
I guess the question is, if you're looking at occupancy and revenue that the Hampton's bringing in versus what you're seeing on the financial statement, just recognize that there's a month delay in it.
Well, I think if you're sending that, I think
I was gonna say,
that'll be fine. I don't think you need to change anything on this.
When I get this from the county every month, Shelley, I'll just forward it.
Thank you.
Any questions about this month's report? Doesn't seem to be anything unusual there. We'll ask one other question since the city manager's here also. There is a stipulation in the statute that enables you to withhold a certain percentage, I believe it's 3% from our revenues for this very professional service that we receive. Is it your intent to do that? I don't think it's been done previously. In fact, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure if we've actually done that. I think it's up to $2,500 or 3% or something.
I think it's 3%, but maybe it is a limit.
Yes.
So it is your intent. We did budget for that in the upcoming 6 months, so.
Yes.
Okay, great. Any other questions, financial related? Great. You can go back to work.
And the only other thing she had mentioned, we just got all the financial statements for 2018. ending 2018, and the fund balance was $94,722.
Ah, okay, which is more than we had thought, okay.
Last year was $72,549, so it went up.
That's great.
Y'all had a good year last year.
Hampton Inn had a very good year last year. So, and the trend seems to be continuing, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, we have, because our budget that they gave us is up a bit, so we have upped our rates, which in turn,
But doesn't seem to have affected occupancy.
not really.
So, great. Anything else, Michelle?
Unless y'all have any other questions.
Thank you so much.
Sorry to skip that.
It's
I had
okay.
somebody sick and I'm gonna do payroll.
Payroll,
Yeah.
to get that finished.
Got to get that finished. We'll move on to item B2. And I'm sorry that Ryan isn't here. My intent with putting this on the agenda today, and also, sorry, Phil isn't here either, so I'm not sure what we can do with this particular item today, given those two circumstances. I included the proposal that I made to the board about 6 months ago to work with people throughout the community to develop a several weeks-long event called Belmont Blooms or Belmont Blossoms. We didn't really determine a name, but it was an idea that the garden had, that our executive director and I had, that was kind of in conjunction with our developing the 3-year plan. Just kind of happened at the same time. In the 3-year plan, we said that we wanted to develop a signature event as kind of this board's next step in its development. And I made that proposal and included in the agenda the proposal that I set forth 6 months ago. At the last meeting, Ryan said, so that sounds like a pretty good idea, but let's put out some other ideas and see if it really sticks, to see if there's a better idea out there, or if this is the idea that we want to move forward with. So, not really sure what to do with that, since Ryan isn't here.
Yeah, Phil is at a training. I did invite Phil and actually the city's event coordinator as well so they could share any other activities that were going, and unfortunately he's at a training.
Understand. So, maybe the next reasonable step is maybe a meeting with Phil and the new events coordinator to see if they have other ideas for an event we may do, and then maybe this board revisits it next meeting. Or do you have any other thoughts from the board?
Where is the event? Is it going to be in downtown Belmont or at the Gardens?
So both. Okay, I can explain, kind of what my idea was. So if you look at events in other cities, Wilmington has the North Carolina Azalea Festival. It attracts hundreds of thousands of people every year, and it's several weeks long. And it includes concerts, it includes a parade, it includes events at their restaurants, it includes events at their gardens, home tours, just all sorts of events within the city during this several weeks long period. My concept would be roughly the same, but it would be based on early blooming plants, bulbs and those sorts of things. We, as the garden, as part of its 20th anniversary, has purchased and planted 20,000 annual bulbs for this year, because this is our 20th anniversary. And so we would work with entities like the city, like Holy Angels, like Belmont Abbey, like the McLean Development, the Historical Society, to come up with locations where we would do more plantings of bulbs and those sorts of things. Last year we planted, and I don't know how many it was, a lot of perennial blooming bulbs, daffodils and those sorts of things that'll come back year after year, that provides kind of a background for this palette of other bulbs that we'll plant. But it doesn't have to be all about bulbs. You know, you could have, Keep Belmont Beautiful could do, a special Yard of the Year kind of recognition, or we could do a tour of homes. And, there's some beautiful homes that have 75-year-old azalea plantings here in Belmont. So we could list those on kind of a driving tour or a walking tour.
Well, let's reach out to the Historic Belmont Foundation. They've done home tours, and they're kind of also looking for, it's kind of on and off, but they might be able to do something on an annual basis if we tie it into
Yes,
this.
yeah, and I think that would be a great idea. There's already several things that the city does. There's obviously the Easter egg hunts and those sorts of things that happen this time of year. Keep Belmont Beautiful has several events, I guess. I don't really recall. Phil just sent out some information to the Lyerly Agency on some of the events that we do in March and April.
You're talking about a 2 or 3 week event possibly,
Three or four, actually.
beginning roughly?
If you look at the 19th page of your agenda, I've got some dates there proposed,
March.
roughly the end of March through the third week of April is what I proposed in this idea. If we come up with another idea, that may change that. This is when nature would have these plants bloom, and it is when color starts appearing on the dogwoods and those sorts of things. So there are naturally occurring things that make Belmont very beautiful. And I have to say that the job that the city did this year with Holiday was just spectacular. We drove in for dinner one night, and it was it was just incredible. Pretty early on in the season. So we're hoping for that kind of thing to kind of take hold with several different organizations. My hope would be that we could reach out to the restaurants and they do something. Maybe it's a restaurant week sort of thing, or maybe it's a restaurant crawl where you go to 3 or 4 different restaurants and you get heavy hors d'oeuvres or a small plate or whatever at each of those restaurants, along with a drink for X number of dollars.
So we could borrow from Queens Fest, maybe somewhat.
You could. I mean, it could. I don't know if we, have, enough restaurants, enough critical mass to do a Queens Feast sort of thing. But you could do some iteration of that. Regardless, my thinking is that we would put together a committee that would include, people from this board. I think somebody from the chamber would certainly, we would want somebody involved. We would, probably go to Holy Angels and see if Sister Nancy or Regina would serve on this board. We would go to the historical board, the Historical Association, see if we could get somebody involved there. The downtown development folk, or the downtown merchants folks, make sure they are engaged, make sure we have somebody from the restaurants that are that's engaged in it, and put together a committee, regardless of what we do, to make this a great community event. So.
I like the idea of the bulbs. I don't plant much, but I seem to recall Marie and her mom talking about them. They come back, you split them, you get more.
With some varieties, yes, you can do that.
So once we plant them, they're in, just a little bit of maintenance, right, on them?
Yeah.
So it's not like we gotta rip out and plant every year.
Not necessarily. The ones we are planting this year are annual bulbs. They were both annual and perennial varieties of bulbs.
Jim, the bulbs you're talking about from the botanical garden, are they going to be planted at the botanical garden?
Yeah.
Or would they be available to be planted?
No, planted at the botanical garden, but we have resources and knowledge that may, I don't know if you have, do you have a horticulturalist on staff that, we may be able to provide knowledge, and even a volunteer base. Maybe we take advantage of economies of scale, and so I'm talking about something that's going to happen in 2020. These bulbs will bloom in 2019, but I'm hoping we can use that as kind of a showpiece to, kind of get this idea going. And so we would be willing to work with you on ordering and those sorts of things. And even the expertise or the design expertise and those sorts of things, and maybe even help with the volunteer base to help plan them, if that's something that's a possibility.
So is your 20th anniversary this year?
Our 20th anniversary is 2019.
Okay.
I'm proposing this signature event for 2020, for spring of 2020.
So the 20,000 annual bulbs that you planted will bloom in 19?
Correct.
Is it too late for us to plant the same types of bulbs in our downtown?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, probably just a little too late.
Okay.
So, but that's what that's how we would work with you in 2020.
I didn't know, that would be nice. I mean, we use annuals in our planters because we do a fall planting and a spring planting.
Uh-huh.
So it always has color.
Yeah.
But that would be good, so the planters may not be appropriate if you have to plant them and let them grow over a couple months. But there are areas where we, within the parks or
Exactly.
right off the planters.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'd love to do that for,
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah, great. So it all ties in together.
Keep Belmont beautiful. I know they've got at least one master gardener on staff who might be able to help lead the, whatever you need.
That would be a great person to be on that committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be fantastic.
I'm sure there's a garden club in
Yeah.
Belmont. I'm not sure exactly who that is, but there is one.
Do we have any events in that time frame? Do we have any like major events that would, Be problematic.
Easter egg hunt and the Garibaldi Fest is in May.
It's in May, and I think the concerts start in May.
Not really.
Yeah.
Well, I think the only thing in late March or April would be Easter egg.
Easter egg, or the, no, Earth Day,
Or
Arbor
Earth Day, Arbor
Day
Day, yeah.
would be good as well. That, yes, that Earth Day, Arbor Day is, I think, in early April.
Can't remember. Phil did have some,
Something was posted on our Facebook page about it.
but I would hope we would have a concert downtown or more than one. Maybe there's one downtown, maybe there's one at the Garden. We have several locations where we can actually do music. So I don't know, I think there's a lot of ideas out there, but I did want to kind of put it to the test and vet the idea and then move pretty quickly to establish a committee. And I think that would, if we, I certainly be glad to help lead this effort. I don't think it's probably right for me to do that on my own, but perhaps a co-chair sort of thing, if, we could put that together.
I mean, I like the idea. I mean, it ties in with the garden. It's interesting.
So you didn't like Blooming Belmont?
Blooming Belmont's okay. I have purchased BelmontBlooms.org, BelmontBlossoms.org, and BelmontBlossoms.com. Apparently, BelmontBlooms.com is somebody else. Somebody else owns that. So, not exactly sure what it was. So, any other direction from the board?
On this particular
Yeah.
item, I mean, I like the idea. I think you get a lot of tie-ins with some of the organizations in town. I mean, as far as the city's end goes, I like to see how much it'll cost us. Because it's not just in paying for the vans and whatever. I was seeing Public Works is going to play a pretty big role, and I know all the events stress their overtime budget. So, I mean, that's a factor.
So I think it's sponsorable. I don't know, maybe we need somebody that can raise money on this committee. But I do think you could go out and raise money. When you start talking about planting these annual bulbs, some of them can cost as much as $1 by the time you get them in the ground. So when you talk about paying for the bulb and shipping and the labor to plant it, it can cost you almost as much as $1.
That's where we need a sponsor. Either provide the bulbs free or pay for the bulbs.
Sure, but I think you could
be,
even,
Lowe's,
yeah.
something like that, the big garden center.
Yeah. But we would need somebody to do that ask.
Right.
And it's, the garden is going to go out and raise money on its own for its part of this project, and other organizations would be free to do that as well. But if we had some sort of funds to, put in, our coffers to, kind of start these projects would be a good thing to do. The other thing I thought of was doing, if you did a bucket bulb to beautify Belmont, ask people at the cash register at the local merchants if they want to donate $1 to beautify Belmont. And then Keep Belmont Beautiful gets that money, or downtown goes into the downtown budget, which I understand they don't have a huge budget for those sorts of things, or I don't know where that may go in the city to beautify Belmont. So with your blessing, I think what I'll do is reach back out to Ryan, since he initially raised that question, have a conversation with him, and then possibly meet with Phil, Shelley, and,
Cassidy.
okay.
Jim, what is the right time to plant the bulbs?
October, November. We had a few left in December that we planted. So it is just barely too late now. And actually, one of our experts may tell you, it's probably okay to do now. And I'll ask that question. So,
I really like the idea of having like the main events at the garden, because you've got a good venue, plenty of parking, and it's contained.
yeah,
And then have ancillary and supportive events downtown, and then you drive traffic back and forth.
that's the plan.
The businesses, the restaurant weeks, and, yeah, have it.
The restaurants could have flower-inspired dishes.
They could, yeah. I think the chefs would have a good time with that. So, Shelley, should I reach out to you and Phil?
Yeah,
Try to
that'd be
schedule that?
fine, or if you want me to try to coordinate that, I'll be happy to.
Might actually be easier for you to do it.
Okay,
Since you
absolutely.
probably see him a little bit more often than I do, huh?
Do you need a motion to move forward with this?
I don't think so.
Formalize it? No.
Yeah, we're not asking to spend any money at this point. It's exploratory. I just want to garner support for it. So I want to build consensus and kind of from the ground up. So I want this board's kind of consensus.
Jim, did tulips bloom during this period? Or they
Yeah.
bloom later?
Yeah, it's tulips is what we're
Some
talking
of
about.
the prettiest pictures I've seen in downtown Belmont are red tulips.
Right, the
with
red and
white.
yellow tulips, yeah.
Actually, that picture gets used a lot.
Yeah.
What's the bloom range for a tulip?
So
Starts and ends?
it's sometime in that time period. So
Okay.
you can't ever really tell. It depends. They have to get very, very cold, and then warm up gradually. So,
Well, maybe one of the professionals at the garden could develop a Belmont tulip or
Special
Belmont
Ooh.
bloom
color,
or
yeah.
something special for
That's
the
great.
2020
it's a good idea.
We are
introduction.
special.
Jimmy, probably raise money, at least at the elementary schools, for the bucket bulb. Get the kids involved. Belmont Central is really good about taking on little projects like that.
And who won't give a kid $1?
And that actually had occurred to me in my original thinking, but I forgot that the involvement with the county schools could be pretty big.
We could plant those Belmont bulbs, the school campuses and downtown, the Hampton and different places around town to have that consistent.
Yeah. I'll look at how you develop a Belmont tulip. Can tell you honestly, it's pretty.
Hybrid, pick two others.
So it has to be done in a lab.
I have no idea.
It would.
I think
It would be
neat.
done in a lab, and we don't have one, but we can get it done, I imagine. So,
So we're gonna
If
be
anybody
coming
can, you guys can.
yeah,
Oak Harbor of the Mid-Atlantic, right?
that's us. That's us. Do you see those? Yeah, do you see that? Are you familiar with Oak Harbor?
You know, I've heard about it. I think Marie's mom and dad went up there and they told us about it. They have some family up there, so I
Yeah.
think they visited it.
All right, good. Thank you for that discussion. I'll proceed and try to build some more consensus. I would suggest that our other business would be that, maybe you need to say that out loud.
Yeah, so today is Stephanie's last day. She is, I'm just going to take some time off for family, and so she is in the office today, just kind of tying up some last minute stuff, but yeah, she's not going to be with us anymore, so.
So do we need a resignation from her?
Yeah, if we could get something in writing.
Okay.
And then the statute stipulates that that person would have to be replaced by another person associated with Hampton Inn. So-
Okay.
So I assume, I don't know, who you have a discussion with about who that is. If it's, you just wait on another sales director. You'll have those discussions and let us know?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you'll just send me, or shout an email with who you would recommend.
Okay.
I can send it to the council.
Okay.
Any other business?
Just one thought. I know we had talked about doing some radio at some time. I don't know if we were still considering that type of advertising. But, I was listening to BT the other day, and it just occurred to me, I was hearing a lot of PSAs. And I don't know if we feed that kind of thing to BT or the radio stations when we're having events in Belmont, but they'll do public service announcements, which will get your name and your event out there. So just kind of that thought tied together.
Yeah, at our last meeting, we did approve the contract with the Lyerly Agency, and there wasn't anything specific in that, in their proposal to recommend radio, but ramped up PR efforts are included in that. Ramped up social media efforts are included in that contract that we signed. And we will look at doing radio on an ongoing basis, and certainly PSAs or public service announcements are certainly a thing that we can do. So I can make sure that they're at least trying to get those on specific radio stations.
Okay.
So, Gaston College's radio station does it as well. So yeah. Anything else?
That's all I had.
I'd just like to thank you all for your work promoting our holiday events.
Good.
I know y'all got some things in some of the online publications in Charlotte. And from what we can tell, we have record turnout at pretty much all of our Christmas-related events in December. And I appreciate your support. Thank you. Your new direction and getting people to cross the river and come in and venture to Belmont. It was great. Appreciate your work on that.
Had good subject matter, so that certainly helps. So
Adrian, I noticed that the lights are still on downtown, and the longer they stay on, the better, as far as I'm concerned. I know that it costs more money to keep them burning, but they really light up downtown Belmont beautifully. I don't know if you ever look at the webcam or not, but, 10 o'clock at night in February on the webcam, it's pretty dark in Belmont if those lights aren't on, but if they are, it really sparkles.
We plan on keeping them up through February, and then pulling them back at least on through the canopy so that the trees can grow when the weather warms. We may leave them on the trunks. We'll figure out what's best for the trees.
And I think the top of the building lights will stay. They're staying.
Good.
I did notice at the Y one morning a week or two ago, and WBTV had their Belmont camp. And of course, everything was dark on Main Street, but you can see the lights on the trees and on the buildings, and it just looked fantastic.
I think they use it every morning. I mean, at different times. I don't watch it for 3 hours from 4 o'clock on in the morning, but every time I try to catch it, I can catch it, or if I record it, it's always there. Every time Al Compton's there. The other guy who fills in for him, I'm not sure knows how to do it, but I'm trying to teach Larry Sprinkle that they could do it also. But and my wife tells me when I don't catch it, she said, I come down to breakfast, I saw Belmont on webcam. So Al Conklin is really, really good about that for us. And I think the longer we can keep those lights on, the better. And I'm glad that's going to be through February. I keep wondering every night, is this the night the lights are going to go off? But,
And you're right, because with it getting dark early, we want to keep them on there because it just adds a little bit extra safety for pedestrians coming down.
Jim, just one thing, I like the idea of a parade. I don't know logistically, how that would work, but that would be a good signature event also, I think of the Tournament of Roses parade, and we've got the tulips.
exactly. Yep.
But I mean, I know that's hugely expensive to decorate those floats, very time consuming, so I don't know if that lends itself to the type of,
We have an organization in Belmont that has that expertise. I don't imagine we can convince them to do another one, but they might share the expertise with us.
We don't have any expertise in decorating floats with tulips.
But you know where to get them though, I bet.
I can get the floats, but
Yeah.
I can't put flowers on them.
So,
Yeah, and probably it would be easier to get floats at that time of year.
You
I
would
don't
think.
know, though. They're pretty much found the clock now. They used to be just a December company, but they got all kinds of floats now for other holidays.
just throw in a tulip queen and we'll be done.
Yeah, tulip queen, and you can have
Them
the
That'll bring
queens
the
from
high
the
school.
various high schools in the
Yeah.
parade, yeah. It would be fun. So, Wilmington has like a big-time queen, azalea queen, they fairly popular ones, and they had,
Huge festival.
this year was a former, or last year it was a former Charlotte reporter that's gone national. Can't remember who it is.
I think a tulip queen would do well in the media, plus I think it'd garner a lot of interest with the high school, maybe the college folks.
I think it's a great idea.
All right, I'm played out of ideas now.
I do have one other thing that I wanted to mention is that the garden started today offering free admission to federal employees who have been furloughed, and actually all federal employees, because we can't tell who's furloughed and who's not. So and we're going to do that through the end of January. So they get free admission for the federal employee and one guest to the garden through the month of January, and then we'll see how the government shutdown goes. But we thought that was a nice gesture for some folks that are probably fairly stressed at this point. So,
Has anybody seen Business North Carolina?
I have.
This
It's in
week?
business in North Carolina.
Just came out?
It's very good.
The last 3 pages?
Yeah,
Okay.
very good.
Nice, really nice piece on Belmont.
Very nice spread.
Isn't it? Was it Town Square? The Town Square feature.
Feature, yeah. It was very nice and pretty comprehensive too.
It was very well done.
Mentioned just about everybody. So did a good job. If there's no other business, we will stand adjourned.
All right, good meeting.
Thank you, everybody. Now we can say what we really think.
There's some ideas
Thank you,
kind of
Adrian.
floating around, but Carnegie, Hunter,
I like the idea.
yes.
Good, thank
Yeah,
you.
she's our regional director of sales.
Okay, got potential.
Yeah, she, because we've known, for a couple weeks that Stephanie was going to leave.